Today's cocktail is the Bee's Knees. The Bee's Knees is a Prohibition-era cocktail made with gin, lemon juice, and honey. It is shaken, chilled, and served in a cocktail glass, usually with a lemon twist. I don't know a whole lot about the Bee's Knees. This is a cocktail that I came across as I was researching cocktails to use on the show. As I always say, it's a gin-based cocktail, and I've mentioned many times how gin is not my favorite liquor. But again, when you take gin, which is very herbal tasting, and you add the lemon and the sweetness, I can sort of see the appeal there with honey and lemon juice mixed with gin. I imagine it probably tastes a little bit like a cross between a cough syrup and a lemon honey cough drop. But that gin will get to you. So I'm sure after 2 or 3 you'll feel just fine. As always, if you're of age and you have the opportunity, I would urge you to try the Bee's Knees. It's me, the Killer Bee, the fat man, the Africanized honeybee, the carb block guy. With me, as most of the time usual, my fabulous co-host May. What up, May?
What's the deal, son?
Nah, man, still out here in Corona land. I don't think we're gonna have a summer.
No, I think summer's gonna look like a whole different kind of beast. I mean, I did all this time this spring trying to get my summer body, and I think I'm just gonna be showing it to the living room. That's it. That's it.
But we're gonna make do. So today, I want to talk about when I was living in the Midwest, and I'm a Southerner at heart. I haven't lived exclusively in the South all my life, but I'm the child of a Southerner, and the part of my family that I'm closest to are Southern people. In the part of my life that I can remember, we lived in Tennessee and North Carolina, and then we moved to Germany. And Germany was the first place that I lived that had an actual winter. And I mean, like, it would snow in January and you wouldn't see the ground again until March.
Oh, yeah.
And we lived on a hill. We lived on the top of the hill. So the idea of snow chains and studded tires and driving cars on snow and ice was not completely foreign to me, but it was not something I had personally experienced. I grew up watching motorsports on TV, so I had seen rally cars on snow. The Rally of Sweden is traditionally on snow and ice the whole way. And so they always had studded tires there, and I'd seen that. And around college, in my post-college years, I played a lot of Gran Turismo 2, and Gran Turismo 2 had an ice racer car on it. It was a little four-wheel drive Opel, and I loved playing with that thing, even though could you race it on ice in that game?
I was like, is that a video game?
Yeah, I think there were some tracks that you could race it on ice. I know I have like whatever version of Gran Turismo plays on PS3 now, and it definitely has some snow and ice stages, but I just remember the Opel was cool looking. That's why I liked it. But
ooh, that's what I should get we have a PS4. I should get a driving game.
Yeah.
Because right now I have a FIFA game and like a Lego game. I'm
gonna tell you what you do. You do like I do. You get you a racing game, and then you go on eBay and buy you one of these steering wheel pedal combos that plugs in.
Ooh.
Yeah, because that changes. It's a whole different gimmick when you're not using the thumbs anymore. But
yeah,
I digress.
Anyway.
So, winter 2000, I moved to the Midwest in 2005, but I was in Illinois on the Mississippi River Valley, and the Mississippi ices up, but it does not really freeze over. And where it does, the ice is still very thin. Like, Mississippi River ice is not something you walk on unless you want to die. But
and I'm not into dying.
What I was told is that in the back channels and in between the islands and the shore and some of the places where the channel is really slow and shallow, that does freeze pretty hard, and they'll go out and race motorcycles or snowmobiles on that ice. but I had never seen that. So 2009, May of 2009, I moved up into Iowa, job transfer, and I moved quite a bit further north. And the part of Iowa I lived in, the river there did freeze up pretty good. In fact, that was one of the things that used to be business in that town was when the river would freeze in the winter, they had what they call an ice house. They would cut blocks of ice and store them there, and that would be the ice that they would use for ice boxes in town.
Oh, yikes.
And they got a whole historical thing about that. It's actually pretty neat. But the lake, there's a state park near there, and that lake froze hard in 2010. It froze real hard. And I was driving by one day and saw some guys out there on their motorcycles. So I stopped and took pictures. I took a bunch of pictures, and I talked to them a little bit. And that was my first time ever walking on a frozen lake. Now, mind you, when I got there, they had 5 or 6 motorcycles, their trucks, their trailers, and an ATV with a scraper blade parked on the lake.
See, I've only ever seen people walk on ice in the Lifetime movies where they fall in and almost die. So I'm just like, yeah.
No. Now, don't get me wrong. People fall through in Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, in those areas. People do fall through, but when they fall through, it's because they are not minding their they got those states. They have places where they have signs next to the lake that tell you whether or not the lake has a bubbler, because if it has a bubbler, it won't freeze good.
And reading is fundamental.
Yes, but it also tells you, how to gauge the ice, and they do a lot of ice fishing up there, so they have augers where they can drill through the ice and measure the thickness and all that. So I was standing on what I knew to be the fishing pier, and I was like, man, I'm not coming on that ice. They were like, yeah, it's fine. It's 2 feet thick. I'm like, huh?
Yeah, I'm cool.
He was like, nah, it's froze solid. You see all their trucks are parked there. And sure enough, it was. I walked out on it, and it was a weird feeling because there's cracks in it, because it does, cracks form and it does shift periodically. But like you said, it's thick, and it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't cracking and creaking when I walked on it, but periodically you'd hear like a thump, and I'd be like, what was that? He was like, that's cracked. Ice is shifting. But they drove their bikes around on it, and they had sheet metal screws instead of spiked tires. Because I had seen motorcycle ice racing on TV, and I knew that you could put spikes on your tires. And also, it was in one of those James Bond movies once, For Your Eyes Only, I think. Whatever. You can get tires that have studs in them for racing on ice, but guys who are cheap, they just get regular dirt bike tires, and they buy a bunch of screws, and they just run the screws down into the knobs on the tires. So that's how you make your ice tires.
Oh, okay.
And they were just driving around, and they had a little road. It wasn't an oval. It was more like a road course. And they were just having a good time. I was like, wow. And I took a bunch of pictures, and then I started thinking, I was like, oh, wait. I said, do y'all do cars? And they were like, well, not here. The ice doesn't get thick enough. But up north, Minnesota, Wisconsin, further north, they do that.
Nice. So it's like a whole thing.
Yeah, I went on the web. I went on the internet and started looking. And I found some places. I found a lot of clubs that do motorcycles, organized races with motorcycles and ATVs, especially in Wisconsin. And then in Minnesota, I found a club that does cars. And I made contact with them and found out when one of their events was going to be. And I drove up to visit, because from my house, it was, they split time between northern Minnesota and southern Minnesota. And I waited till they were down south. And from there, from my house, it was about a 3-4 hour drive.
That's not too bad.
Wasn't too far north. I was only like an hour from the Minnesota border, but they were quite a bit further west than me. So I got to Minnesota pretty quick, but it was a lot of zigzagging through a lot of little small farm towns to get out there where they were, out to Mankato. But I got there and went out on the lake with them, and I did that in 2010 and again in 2011, and it was quite an experience. The lake itself is called Madison Lake, and it's a little bit east of Mankato, where is it Mankato State or University of Minnesota Mankato, whatever the school's called now. They changed its name, but there's a university in Mankato. And I remember because I ate Chipotle. I stayed at a Fairfield Inn, and I had Chipotle for dinner.
Chipotle.
But I went out on the lake and they were friendly. I mean, it was pretty clear that I was a stranger, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
In that part of Minnesota.
You
But
know.
they were friendly, and once they figured, you know, as usual, once they figured out that I talked car, it was all good after that. And
Right. People just have to know you're in the tribe.
yes, so it was some Subarus, a couple of Mitsubishis, you know, the all-wheel drive guys, a couple of Audis, couple of no, I guess that was it. The rest were Volkswagens, different types of water-cooled Volkswagens, and older, you know, like the older deal where you couldn't remember whether it was a Volkswagen or an Audi, like the Fox.
Oh yeah.
Or,
Volkswagens the stuff in Minnesota? That's
a couple of golf. Well, what I figured out is that these guys would buy up old road racing cars, or some of them were frustrated road racers. And they just, because they had a bunch of parts, and you know, Volkswagen hot rod parts are easy to find.
Okay.
Roll cages, and then you know, cars get hand me down and traded around, and so you ended up with a bunch of Volkswagen folks. But there were, like I said, there were some Subarus and some Mitsubishis and a Saab and a Mazda, and I think there was even like a Dodge Shadow. Mostly front wheel drive, a couple of 4-wheel drive cars, and one like BMW 318 or something. Not a lot of rear wheel drive cars out there.
Oh yeah, because those are whack in that kind of weather.
Yeah, but you know, with the studded tires, it makes all the difference. But apparently on ice, the front wheel drive cars do tend to be faster. But they, I did a lot of filming with my camcorders. I did a lot of shooting with my still camera, and I got to mount one of my camcorders inside one of their cars because they had a roll cage. I brought my roll cage mount with me, and was like, "Hey, can I piggyback my camera in your car for one of the races?" And we did that, you know, with the agreement that I would send them the DVD, and I did. Yeah. You know, I let them post the photos to their Facebook page, and I got some great footage because inside a car during those races is incredible because the studded tires throw up a bunch of, you know, shavings. So it's like this cloud of mist. And then the one year, was it 2011 I went, and it was warm. It was like 40 degrees that day. So now you have water on the surface of the lake.
I love that 40 degrees is warm.
In February in Minnesota, 40 degrees is very warm.
40 degrees is summertime.
Let me tell you, I was wearing like my full ski, you know, the bibs and the Columbia over, you know, the 3-layer Columbia over top of it. Yeah. I had to come out my coat. I was sweating like a pig. But you know, if it's overcast and cloudy, then you can't see anything because they kick up so much mist and ice that it's just like, especially in the morning, because the lake's already a little foggy anyway, and you can't see nothing. But in the afternoon, when the sun comes out and the sun's bright, you get these huge clouds of ice crystals and spray and mist, and it's really cool. But from inside the car, you can't really see anything but the warning light of the car in front of you because they have to run like a center high mounted light that stays on all the time for visibility. So it's like the brake light, except it's always on. And let's say they have some contact when they get into the cloud where they can't see. You drive in and your screen goes to white out, then you hear like whack. And it's like, okay, he just hit somebody.
Oh,
I mean, usually just little nudges. They don't. I mean, it's like NASCAR. They bump, you know.
Little taps.
Their bumpers and fenders are kind of ugly, but you know, except for the car out in front because he's got clean air, of course. But it was just a wild ride. So they have, you know, they got the studded tire classes, and they would buy what used to be called a Menard tire, which is a little skinny 13-inch tire that's pre-studded. However, those tires were discontinued, so some of them were running older Menards tires. Some of them were starting to stud their own tires. Tire Rack, I think you can buy studded tires. Well, you can buy winter tires at Tire Rack, and you can pay money to have them studded.
Okay.
Not expensive, because as you imagine, they have to put a lot of studs in a tire, especially tires that are designed to have studs. They got little spots where they go, And
Yeah.
they got to do that I assume
By
they do that
hand.
by hand. I don't think they have a robot that would do
So
that.
that sounds very labor intensive.
I don't think they stud enough tires at tire rack to justify a robot. So
No.
my guess is they either farm it out or they hire temps and give them battery powered guns. But whatever the case is, there's an upcharge for studded tires. So sometimes people will buy tires and do the sheet metal screw thing. The tow truck that was out there with them, I rode with him when he went to retrieve somebody that got it. Because it's Minnesota, so not only is the lake frozen, but there's a foot or two of snow on top of it.
Right.
So they have a plow. They'll plow that area for a race course. But if you get out of the racing surface and get stuck in that snow, they got a truck that has to come get you.
Yeah, because you're just kind of out there.
Yes, so I rode with him on a recovery tow, which was crazy. Because basically what he did was just strap onto the car, drop his truck into 4-wheel drive, and just gun it, and kept yanking until the car popped loose. I was like, man, that tow cable's going to break and come flying through the back window of this truck, and we're going to die of massive head injuries. But that didn't happen.
And what a story for the funeral.
Right, but it was a wild couple of days I spent with them out there. They're right there in what is basically the town lake beach area. It's a little inlet. You'd almost call it a bay. Madison Lake is pretty big, so there's this little inlet, and it's lined by houses and fishing piers. And then there's a restaurant right there, because where we park is basically the main fishing pier, the boat launch area. So there's a little restaurant there. You can go in there for lunch and get you some, walleye and French fries or whatever, and or at least a hot cocoa or coffee or something if it's really cold. But like I said, the times when I was there, it was 30, 40 degrees, which in Minnesota in February is not frigid.
No, that's.
Your hands and fingers might get cold, but you sit in the car a couple minutes. But I learned the trick for that, and buy those little chemical hand warmer things.
Yeah.
You put those in your pockets, and when your fingers get cold, you take your gloves off and stick your hands down in there with the chemical warmers.
Yeah.
But good time. They also have the rubber to ice class, which is slower, obviously, when you don't have any studs in your tires. And they offered me a chance to do the rookie race. Somebody was going to loan me a car and let me do the rookie race, and I politely declined.
Oh man, you ain't take that cheap?
Well, mostly because I didn't have the money. Because it wasn't free.
Right.
But because clubs have expenses.
Clubs.
Autocrosses aren't free, and drag racing. Nothing in motorsports is free.
Right.
But between what it would cost to rent the car and the entry fee, and the fact that I had never driven on ice like that before, and it was like, I don't like losing. I guess that's the best way to explain it. Nor do I like tearing up other people's cars and having to pay for them. So I politely declined. And one guy did roll the car over, and I missed it. I looked up, and he was on his roof. I was like, oh. I missed it. And it was like a 4-wheel drive Mitsubishi. I don't know how he got it on its roof. But they managed to turn it back over, and it wasn't totaled. It had just rolled over. It had, not like it had barrel rolled 15 times or something. I think maybe his windshield was cracked, but other than that, it was in pretty good shape. Just a lot. As
long as the driver was okay.
Oh yeah, he was fine. It was a low speed event. That's the thing about the ice; they don't really generate a whole ton of speed. I think. I guess they're running it like red line because the tires are spinning the whole time, but I don't think they do much more than 35 or 40 miles an hour.
Yeah, I can imagine they're not going super fast.
Yeah, and there's no the course that they lay out. Usually, there's no straight lines really. You zig and you zag and you zig and you zag and you zig and you zag. Yeah. But the 2 weekends that I spent with them, because did I just do Saturday in 2010 and then maybe Saturday and Sunday in 2011, something like that, whatever it was. Basically, I think I spent a total of 3 days with them over 2 weekends in 2 different years. But great guys. I was even swapping emails with them for a couple of years afterwards. And they're like, "You coming?" And I never went back.
Huh.
12, 13.
Why not?
I'm trying to remember. Schedule stuff. One year. Now I know one year they didn't have ice.
Okay.
Global 12 might have been the mild winter when there wasn't any ice. Yes, because 13 was the horrible winter where everything froze. But sometimes it was, I had work travel or other things, or once I got into, I was doing other stuff up there. So
yeah,
I had organizations I was working with, and volunteer stuff and work stuff and family travel stuff, all the things. So, sometimes the weekends that they were in the southern part of Minnesota where I could get to them were not weekends I felt like going, or, they scheduled the race and then there wasn't any ice, because that happens. Or not that there wasn't any ice, so the ice wasn't thick enough, because that happens too. Various things, but for whatever the reason was, I never got to go back. And I regret that, because I really did want to go back and drive. I really, really wanted to go back and race.
Yeah, because that sounds really cool.
But, God willing, someday I'll fly up north one winter.
Yeah, just for grins and giggles.
Yep. But good time, and I really enjoyed the time I spent with them, and their websites are still active, and obviously they're not racing now because of Corona, but they had a schedule prepared for this season, so that was cool. And they are the International Ice Racing Association, and they are international because their northern spot is actually Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada.
Canada, eh?
Yeah, because Minnesota is basically South Canada.
Pretty much.
So that's the international part of the International Ice Racing Association.
Oh, I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah. Thank you for watching Cocktails and Crankshafts. If you enjoy my content, please like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to hit the bell icon, and we'll see you soon with new content.